Yeah, let's get right to it. Appreciate you guys coming out. I know everybody's busy here at South by, but this movie's a lot of fun. The guys had a lot of fun making it, and it shows on screen. So without further ado, let's welcome Richard Linklater, his teammate from college, Rick Keeler, and Tyler Hoechlin from the movie. Give it up, guys. In the description for this panel, there is a shout out to the great Bo Schembechler, who says the team, the team, the team. And whether it's filmmaking or baseball or whatever it is that you all do for a living, you know the value of teamwork. Tell me about what kind of teammate Richard Linklater was in your baseball team in college.
He was a fantastic teammate. He was a lot of fun. He was one of the guys. I was a junior and he was a freshman, and we still picked on him. All freshmen
he was one of the intimidating upperclassmen.
But he was a really good teammate. We knew he was going to go on to greater things. He had cassette tapes, and this was when everybody had 8 tracks in their car. And he came to college with these little cassette tapes of all this music on, and we're going, what is a cassette tape? Well, he knew what a cassette tape was at that point. So.
Well, I love it. There's a character in the film who's got an incredible music collection. He's got all his vinyl laid out, and he's really proud of it. So I would imagine that's, kind of an homage to what happened for your life and your time playing baseball. So what else in the film did you rip from your own experience?
It's definitely music. I'm the guy who brought his whole stereo to college. Other guys were just like, they don't bring anything. Remember Coughlin? He had like a glove and a hat, and like 2 shirts and a pair of jeans. The guys would show up with that. And I'm like, brought my car with, I wasn't going to be away from my music, I took all, the downside of that, all these roommates who steal your albums, and you never see them again, and your clothes and all that. So I DJ'd too. I was like DJing. It's funny, I hadn't thought of that in a long time.
It's funny, we're all obviously passionate sports fans. Anybody who's ever participated in sports and been on a team kind of will always consider themselves an athlete, but there comes a moment when you realize, maybe I should do something else with my life. So how far did everyone get playing baseball? And when did you have that moment when you realized, okay, I can't be a pro ball player forever?
Yeah. Well, you want to jump in?
I played through college. I played 3 years of college, 1 year at Arizona State, 2 years at UC Irvine. My decision kind of came prematurely. I had turned down a role in a film at the beginning of my sophomore year. It was offered about 2 weeks before the season was starting, and they needed me for 6 weeks, and I'd been slated to be the starting second baseman, and I couldn't.
What a weird choice to have.
Yeah.
Not many people have professional acting careers, but you were acting as a kid.
Yeah, since I was 9.
And that's rare too, that you see a child actor have also
life
that kind
outside
of, but a significant.
Yeah. And so that was kind of, it was not the first time. I had a couple times where I had to choose one or the other, and baseball always won for me. Yeah. It was just my pure love. I love the game. So it was going into my 3rd year. I'd had an injury, and my coach kind of came up to me and said, I'd taken some meetings that usually I would have said no because I had practice. And he's like, I'm not mad about it, but I think at some point we need to have a conversation, what you want to do. And I kind of said, I would like to continue to do both. I've been doing it for, at that point, like 13 years. I was like, I still want to try to make both work. And he was just very honest and said, he's like, you'll probably play some pro ball. Who knows how long? But I think you have a great opportunity in another place that you're kind of not allowing yourself to explore. He's like, I would encourage you to go do that because I think you can do something special there. And so that was it. That was Friday. I had that weekend series to know it was my last 3 games, which was really cool because there's something about hanging up the cleats and not knowing you have to hang them up. Yeah. So it was like stretching was the best thing ever. Running to the fence was the best thing ever. All of it. It was so great. And sitting in the dugout between the innings, just patting guys on the ass was just this is fun. And it was just, it was the greatest thing. So I had that weekend. The next Monday was the start of the next school quarter, and I didn't go to class. I went to the registrar's office and I said I'd like my tuition check back. And they said, you're not coming this quarter? I said, no. They're like, are you coming back ever? I said, nope. I'm gonna go work. So that was it. That's when it ended.
Well, at least you had some compelling options. A lot of guys, when your career's over, it's like, I've never thought of anything but sports.
It's still a weird void. It is. It's like you lose a piece of yourself. Part of you dies. I feel like I watched Manning's retirement speech. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh yeah.
But it's just watching. I was like, you're saying goodbye to a person because it's such a part of life, and you can't
Yeah.
You can't go back to it. Like once it's done, it's done.
Well, it's funny, Rick, you mentioned, that you kind of don't have a plan after college, or you just focus on just playing baseball.
If that, yeah.
If that, right? So when you were playing baseball in college, were you having ideas of maybe being a filmmaker one day?
Not a filmmaker at that point. I was always a writer. I think as a teenager, my twin goals were kind of like yours, I'm sure. I wanted to be a major league ball player who also a novelist. I was going to write novels, finish the novels in the off season, and write during the season on off, whenever. So I failed in both of those, obviously, but I was always thinking that way. I was always like the writer's fair guy, So I had this thing, but I just love baseball. I was pretty determined just to play as long as they would let me, or however I wanted to play college. Like every guy in college wants to play pro, but what happened for me, my career ended like suddenly. You had that weekend. I had like one at bat that I knew it was kind of my last at bat. I was having these heart problems, and I wasn't really telling anybody, but I was like, something just felt off with me physically. And so we were with the season. It was my sophomore season, your senior season.
Yeah.
I was just about to start. We had like 5 preseason games. I was doing really well. I thought, I'm starting, I'm playing left field, But I suddenly couldn't, I was really lightheaded. I could feel like something was wrong with me. But I remember walking up to bat. I'd come off the field and I was just really lightheaded, and I went up to bat and I just had this feeling like there's something wrong with me. I think it's my last at bat. And I was so looking forward to the season, and I got up there. I remember I hit a single to left between third and short. Barely made it to first base, and I was just praying the next guy didn't drive one in the alley or something. And the next guy popped up to the infield or something. I'm like, okay. And I walked up to the coach. I said, hey, he's like, what's wrong with you? You're white as a ghost. I said, I don't know, something's wrong. So that was it. I had this atrial fibrillation, and I couldn't really run anymore. So the upside of that was I was in a playwriting class that semester, and I remember standing in the outfield going, there's more to life than baseball. It's almost like something intervened and said, well, just kind of like your coach stepped in and said, let me stand back and say, you might play some pro ball, but you're not going to be in the majors probably. And if you have a gift in another area, it takes a lot for an athlete to ever give up sports. Yeah. And you don't really grow up until your career's over. Peyton Manning can now grow up.
Yeah.
He's 40 or whatever, but he will only now be an adult starting last week. So I was in the same boat. I was like, okay, I want to read. I feel behind. I want to read all this stuff. I want to write. I want to, so something did kind of intervene and just say, well, that's what you're going to do now. So I still have my scholarship the rest of the semester, and I just went to the library all the time. I was still living with all the guys, and they were having a great season, but I felt already I'd moved on.
It's funny, backstage, Rick was saying when he was reminiscing about your time in college, he's like, Richard liked to read. A lot of the other guys didn't really read.
I was different. And I think you can get away with that if you're a pitcher.
Yes.
But position players, you don't want to think too much,
You know what's amazing about
pitchers can be the team intellectual, the smart guy, but you never see.
I don't think we had any intellectual pitchers.
No, our pitchers were just all weird. They were. But you played all 4. You got the
but I was a 165-pound catcher, so I knew my days were numbered. Yeah.
Well, what I love in the film is that you see that while everyone is on the same team, they have different agendas, and some have aspirations of pro ball. Others are just happy to be in college and want to party. And when you hear professional teams that win championships say that everybody bought in, that's a really hard thing to do. It's a lot more challenging than one might expect. So did you guys in your time in college realize that some guys are competing against each other? They're maybe not supporting each other? You see that a lot.
Baseball's unique that way because it's both an individual sport and a team sport. It's these individual acts, hitting, pitching, so, and there's competition. It's real. You don't see it that much. There's a scene in, the film North Dallas 40. It's a good football film when he's been sidelined, Nick Nolte, and the guy who replaces him makes a good catch. And he kind of goes, oh, shit. Yeah. His team just did something, but he's kind of selfishly going, oh, I just lost my position.
That's and pitchers are the most competitive because there's so many of them. On a team there'll be 15 pitchers. Yeah. Well, there's only 2 or 3 starters and there's 2 or 3 relievers. So these guys compete a lot, and they compete. One way they compete is in batting practice. And so that's in the scene in the movie. Yeah, the guy's throwing really, really hard in batting practice, and the hitters are going, "This is batting practice. This ain't a game." Well, that's the only way that they can show up and possibly get to start. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another scene too, Tyler, where I think it's your character who says when it's asked like, "This is the best day of my life until tomorrow."
Yeah.
That was a very
lines.
Wilson thing for him to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Well, there's that Joe Namath book. You know, it's kind of, I can't wait until tomorrow because I get, a little asterisk, because I get better looking every day. We kind of grew up in the Joe Namath ball four era of the irreverent athlete.
But it's funny because oftentimes your films can appear to audiences to be so authentic and so grounded and so believable that oftentimes they assume that there's so much improvisation that goes on in your movies.
Right.
But I know how hard you work on your scripts.
Yeah.
That's obviously a line you wrote. Talk to me a little bit.
I don't remember saying it. I honestly don't.
Yeah, no.
I swear,
He came up with that line.
We did the first screening, and we're sitting there. It was just the cast, and I felt like such an asshole. I was sitting there watching it, and the line that happens, and I laughed at my own joke, and I was like, I feel like such a douchebag for laughing at my own joke. But I was like, I literally had no recollection of ever saying that line.
No, that's about when you cast the absolute right person, the little things that come out of their mouth are so perfectly in character. You know, Tyler was like, he's the best baseball player, there. I cast him, not only is he the actor, but he had the swing. I needed some guy who was demonstrably a head above everybody else, all the position players. Who knows about the pitchers? But, for the hitters, we needed that. And because there was a guy on our team who fit that description. Mm-hmm. Wilson was, he was a first-round pick. He was just aloof, especially from a freshman's. He was your class, but from a freshman's perspective, he was very aloof. We had to kind of earn our way into him even knowing our names, by season probably. He was just at that other level. So he was just a cocky guy, just on every level, on the field, just walking through campus. You'd see him. He'd do that. You'd be walking. He'd turn around, look at a girl, and caught you looking at me.
Yeah.
Oh, caught you. He's like,
caught you checking me out.
And so I remembered all that, and I was like, these are guys who are prancing through the world like they're gods. The way athletes are treated, they're so elevated, especially as young men. And if you're a good athlete, you don't know any different. You've been that way since you were a kid. You've been the best player on your team and as a kid in high school. So until that career's over, you don't know that the world's not all. Yeah. So what you depict in the movie is so perfect, that just that one line. It's young male athletic entitlement. And assumptions.
It's like the outlook of tomorrow's gonna be better.
But it's
tomorrow will be even better.
The film, I think, is hopefully both a critique of that, like we're laughing at it and we're laughing with it.
100%.
But you got the humor though. You really embraced McReynolds in such a fun-ass way. It was so fun to be in, and you were like, God, I'm such an asshole, because you're playing a guy younger than yourself.
Yeah.
So you knew that.
Yeah,
guy.
I didn't have that. I didn't
You
have
aren't
that
that guy,
confidence,
but you
arrogance when I
knew
was
that guy.
Yeah, no.
You knew that guy.
I knew that. Oh, I knew.
We all knew
that
guy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he really threw a ping pong paddle at your head too.
Wilson did. Yes. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, it made no sense that this freshman could beat him in anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm a good ping pong player. I beat him, and he's like, hey, I'm a future first-round draft pick. Like, phew. Yeah.
In addition, obviously, to the music and to the wardrobe and the look of the time period, something that you and I were talking about is that, we're all so plugged in, we're all so distracted. Back in 1980, they were living in 1980. There was a presence that I thought was really palpable in the movie. Talk to me a little bit about, Richard, your relationship now with technology as a filmmaker and just as a everyday guy living your life.
Man. Yeah, making the movie, it was so interesting to see the guys adjust to 1980. I mean, humans don't change. We're all kind of motivated the same and going through the same stuff. But the technology and the world around you changes, not only the music, but in this case, I think the world doesn't even look that much different. It's clothes and hair and stuff, but it's the technology. So to get them off that, to have that disappear from their lives really kicked in a whole nother level. It made me kind of, I'm not very nostalgic or, by nature, but I did look back and say, that was a fun time because it was so social. And I think the guys picked up on that. We're disco dancing. We're all together. We're in the car. Instead of everybody looking at their phone in the car, they're singing, Rapper's Delight. They're just all hanging together in that teammate kind of way. They were very much bonded. So me personally with that, I don't really do too much of that. I like the bubble of just your own thoughts and your own, and I don't talk a lot of, I work really hard to kind of craft a work, like a film, which is my best effort. It's comedic, it's thought out. I'll spend whatever time it takes to do that, and I'll put that in the world. But I don't need to tweet. I have a great outlet. I have the best artistic outlet anyone could have. So I don't feel a need to pollute the world anymore with my day-to-day stream of consciousness thoughts on most stuff, Because it's not original.
Want to remind everyone to use the hashtag South by Sports. No, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, if something's going on, I'll hear about it.
Jumping off of that, I mean, that was probably, for us, one of the things at least I enjoy the most. I am one of those anti-tech persons. I don't like it. I'm not the biggest social media fan. Mainly just because it distracts. I think it distracts a lot from times when it shouldn't. I think it's a great outlet for certain things, but being in our 3 weeks of rehearsal, being on the ranch, it was such a great time because all of us bought into that idea. I mean, a lot of us had girlfriends and wives at the time, and a lot of us got in trouble because we weren't checking in very often. But we'd leave our phones in the bunkhouse, and we would all just, that's why the bond was so great. And that's why all of us now, I mean, talking about it, it's the hypocrisy of it, obviously, but we have a text chain that goes off every day. We all still stay in touch. I think it's because the bond that was formed by being so present with each other.
We're just in the room together.
Yeah, because a lot of times on sets, people do in between takes, they're on their phone, you're doing your thing or whatever. You don't really.
I hate that for actors.
Yeah, you don't really socialize and get to know the people you're working with. So this was special for that reason because having to adjust to that it forced us into it, but everyone embraced it. It was awesome.
But what a different world for an athlete. There's guys tweeting at halftime during their games and stuff are you kidding? That's.
But no, now, Rick, you enjoy tech because you're able to stay in touch with all your teammates.
Yes,
from
and
college.
I think when we didn't have it, it allowed us all to become closer and as people and teammates, and kept in touch all these years. There were 15 ball players there last night for this.
Yeah, that was so fun.
And so we're all really, really close. Of course, when we competed, we gave no quarter to each other. But as as we get older, we still play golf and we still compete against each other. But the technology has allowed us to communicate easier and to keep up with each other's lives over the years.
One of our teammates' son is an Olympic diver. He's one of the best divers in the world. So we'll get these texts and we'll see his dive that just won the world championship or something. So it's really exciting. So.
You know what I love about the movie is that you're not consumed with trying to recreate baseball. Although when we do finally see you swing a bat, we go, oh, okay, this dude can really play. Actually, you see there's a scene where he swings an axe.
He swings the axe first.
And you're like, wow, he can swing. But you're not consumed with wanting to recreate baseball. You want to capture baseball culture. And the team. And what is it about, the team in baseball you think that sort of separates maybe from the other sports and why it drew you in as a storyteller?
Well, I've seen a lot of sports movies, like sports fans, you tend to watch all of them. And I always felt like my memories of being on a team or an athlete isn't so much what happened on the field, what you miss, and every player will tell you this when they retire, I miss the guys. You miss being on a team. You miss that locker room. You miss the interrelationships. So in my memory of it, I wanted to depict that. So it's beginning of school. Baseball season's a semester away. They have a team-only practice, players only. 80 minutes into the movie, we see our first baseball. So it's not really about baseball, but it is about the environment that athletes live in, and it's very different. Like high school, if you're on the team, but you still go home every night and live in your parents' house. But suddenly in college, not only is it your teammates, they're your roommates. They're the guys you eat dinner, breakfast, you're in classes together. It's just you are part of their lives to such a huge degree that, you don't even think about until you're in the middle of it. So I was kind of like, well, that's what I remember. That was the fun. And like Rick was saying, it's very competitive, all those little Nerf ball games and, ridiculous little competitions going on at the house and all the fun. But that was kind of the essence. what happened on the field was what you did, that what you were there for. But
But I would almost equate it to the world of acting too. You mentioned those couple weeks of rehearsal when you're hanging out with the guys and then you do your projects and go separate ways, but you have that kind of connection. Do you notice that competition amongst actors sometimes that exists amongst teammates on a baseball team?
I mean, I think obviously it's a competitive field to be in.
but what isn't?
But what isn't?
Everything,
everything is. And I think for us, like you said, the guys, the locker room, like that's what you miss, I think, as an athlete when you're done. And so as an actor, sometimes you become very isolated because you are like you're loaning yourself out to go play a part. And so it's a singular thing sometimes. But with this, that was my favorite memory of it. Like being with, like waking up with a group of guys that were going to do the same thing that day, and you knew you had a common goal, a common mission. Like that was the best feeling. Like that's why those 8 weeks were the best 8 weeks I've had since I stopped playing ball. It was just the most incredible time to have that feeling again. But I mean, I get calls now, my agent doesn't like it, but I get calls going, hey, so that part's actually going to Glenn Powell. And I'm like, that's awesome! I love Glenn. So it was the most supportive group of actors I've ever worked with. There was no jealousy, there was no, I'm gonna one up you. If anything, it was always like, dude, this is your scene, go, go, go. And we would kind of pump guys up. And I mean, that's kind of carried over. We're happy when somebody else takes a job from us because we really do love each other. It's a great group.
I like working with ex-athletes, male or female, anyone who's been on a team sport, because I did learn something, I think, from the coaches I played for in football and baseball and stuff. It's how to create a team atmosphere. Players, you're kind of the coach. Everyone needs something different. But to really win, in this case, it's not competitive. You're not going to play someone for a championship. We're just trying to make the best movie we can. But we did have a common goal, which is as simple as let's make the best movie we can. And to do that, you need the same thing a team needs. You need everybody buying into their role on that team. So as a player, if they're going to bat you second, you're going to be advancing the runner. You're not going to be swinging for the fences. I was put in that position sometimes. And, you play your part on the team, and you accept that, and because that's what's best for the team. And someone who's not with that can ruin a team just like they can ruin a movie.
Well, I feel like in this movie, like an example of that is a kid, Wyatt, Wyatt Russell, right?
Yeah.
And he plays this kind of philosopher, stoner dude. And he's almost off in his own little movie, but he brings a lot of heart to it. And that's a role that otherwise could maybe someone who's trying to be show-offy or flashy, too big.
Or just the weirdo in the corner who's not, buying into the team goals or the other players. Who's just there for themselves.
Do you notice that's easier to do when you have a cast of mostly unknowns or young actors or first-time actors? Because you've done that so many times throughout your career, as well as working with established stars.
Yeah, I think there is a certain. I think it's probably the difference between coaching college and pro, or major leagues. You get all these high-paid athletes who, they're their own brands and their own. That's a different management style if you're coaching the Yankees than it is, a college team, but it just requires different things. But I think there is something pure about catching these guys at this moment where they all are. And there was no prima donna. There were parts in the movie that were bigger than other parts, but that was kind of the older, not older, but the bigger guys with the bigger parts as written in the script were so generous to the ones with less defined roles that it really boosted their roles. So the goal of the movie was to have everybody feel like a team and no one disappear. Everybody have, to feel very distinct in their characters and to fit into the team. And those parts had to be elevated, and that was only because of the generosity of the others.
Whether it's actors or athletes, these guys really seem to thrive on routine and reps. You always talk about in sports, he gets more reps.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your kind of routine and Rick's routine when you guys were playing college ball. Like, what was the kind of day-to-day, the routine, the rhythms that you got into that maybe you miss now looking
Russian
back?
squats.
Russians. Well, because we practiced every afternoon at about 1 o'clock, we all had 8 o'clock classes.
Oh, yeah.
Every semester of every year in college, we all had 8 o'clock classes. So we'd go to class from 8 to 10:30.
Yeah, I was envious of the guys who, I have
Yeah.
a 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
We practice all day. We got to be on the field at 1.
Yeah, 8 o'clock classes, you knock your classes out, come home, grab lunch, and you come back right before practice and you watch soap operas on TV. Every
Look at that
day.
smile, by the way.
Every day.
I thought they were crazy. Like they're watching All My Children.
All My Children. You showed that in the movie. and
Yeah,
that was an homage to our.
Help it. You're like, Erica's such a bitch. You know, it's like.
Yeah, and then we went to work out. We worked out all day and
an
then
album.
ate dinner in the dining hall and did it all again the next day.
I bring it up because I know some people here have seen the movie, some people
Yeah, so we
haven't
have-
yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we have a clip that we're gonna roll now. Colin in the back, where are you? Do you mind rolling the clip? This kind of
think
speaks
we're-
on that routine.
Yeah, oh yeah, the clip is from it's the players only practice on a Sunday afternoon, but they all get together. Okay.
It's my good luck helmet. You know what I'm talking about, Van. It's the one with the 3 scratches on the bill. There's 5 helmets right there.
Yeah, grab a helmet and get in the box. Come on.
Might as well put a strikeout doing the books, fellas.
It's a lucky
Why
helmet.
is the 230 hitter always the most superstitious? Newsflash, it's not working. Get some new superstitions. You got superstitions. No, I have routines. Big difference. You know, superstitions are a holdover from primitive humans finding simple reasons for things they don't understand. Verifiably a complete waste of mental capacity in this day and age. I'm just saying, in a deterministic event, such as hitting a baseball, there actually is a strict relation between cause and effect. And superstition, it's bringing a probabilistic framework and projecting meaning onto a completely random sequence. See, we can deduce from that the lucky helmet was probably not the factor in Coleman's ability to get a hit, because he was just able to do so without it.
The question now will be if this new random helmet now becomes Coleman's lucky helmet.
Exactly.
So you know the real Coma had a lucky bat.
Yeah, we all had lucky. Yeah, lucky
That's a
bat.
great conversation. Routine versus superstition,
Yeah.
especially with baseball players who are playing
Oh, we're
162
so superstitious.
games.
And baseball, you have a lot of time to think about stuff and talk about, and you demonstrate your superstitions.
Do you find yourself as a filmmaker having superstitions or routines, or the first day of filming you have to have your lucky key grip or anything?
No, I remember really fighting that, and the reason that's in this movie, because I remember fighting it, having like, oh, my lucky sanitary socks, they're dirty, but do I wear them in the game? I was really fighting it. I was like, oh, but I got 3 hits, so do I? And I was like, stop it. It's all stupid. So I think try not to have them, but you kind of can't help.
Yeah, it's why not? If you go 3 for 4 and you had chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes in the dining hall, that's what you're going to keep eating and hoping you keep going 3 for 4. Yeah.
But I really go through my life now. I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in any of that. But it was the shift from luck and superstition to routines. I think that's a big distinction, because routines are what works for you. You know, if you dig in and adjust your helmet, it's like because it's making you comfortable, so that you can do your best. But yeah, the randomness of the luck and superstition, that's just kind of comical. But baseball seems to have more of it than other sports.
I love over the years in some of your films, we've been able to revisit characters and find them at different times in their life. And sometimes actors, Tyler will tell me that when they get assigned a role, they think about where their character has been, where their character is going, build a whole backstory. Is that how you approach a character? And this guy's obviously so in the moment, but do you think about where he would have been 20 years later?
I mean, I think it's a fun exercise to kind of go through. I have thought with McReynolds, I definitely have. I've kind of looked at it like, oh, I mean, what if he goes on to be that guy? If he is that first round pick and he goes on and he crushes it for the next 15 years, that's one avenue. But there's also, I mean, having played and had so many buddies that play, I've seen every path. Like, I have buddies who still play Major League Ball now, and it worked out for them. I have buddies who spent 7 years in the minors and then finally hung it up. So with McReynolds, it's like, God, he could have not had the year that he was expecting to have and gone in the 6th round. Maybe he gets hurt. Like, there's just so many options, especially when it comes to baseball, because there's the minor league system. And so there's just so many avenues and things that go your way, and it's just too many. So if anything, it was more the background of McReynolds. And like you said, guys that are in that position in college and sports, you've been that guy for a long time, and especially being an upperclassman and you've earned that position once again. I think high school and college are the 2 times you feel like you have to kind of earn that spot, because through club ball and things like that growing up, you're one of the best if you're continually playing, and then you get to high school, you got to earn that spot on varsity. You get to college, you got to earn that spot. So with McReynolds, it was just constantly, he was the best.
But
He
I
was just
forget,
always
did
the
I
best.
tell you? Did I tell you? Oh, you actually do get drafted in the first, you do
Yeah,
make the major
yeah.
league. The guy on our team, you can talk about Wilson. We didn't talk that much about him, but
He did, and he had that career. He had that 10,
Yeah.
12-year major league career.
yeah.
Didn't you say you caught him, or they were playing a video or something of him
Yeah,
playing
the other
All-Star
night,
game?
like I kind of quit when I wasn't playing anymore. I kind of quit being much of a sports fan. I didn't read a sports page or watch games or anything. So
Really, that's strange to me because you have such a passion for baseball. Clearly, we're talking backstage about certain guys' batting stances.
But that's
I mean,
all
it's really
like-
like
it's a love
nerdy
for- it's a
baseball
love for
stuff.
the game.
I had a non-physical fitness binge for about 18 years after my career was over. So it was only in my late 30s that I kind of thought, oh, what did I like doing? I liked hitting the ball. So I started taking batting practice and just enjoying the pure act of. But that got me back playing basketball, tennis, everything. But I was just kind of making movies and doing my thing. But what was I saying? But I was at an event the other night in New York where they showed the movie, and we were at a party after, little small screening, and someone threw on the All-Star game from like 1985 or something. It was just on the big monitor. And I was just talking to one of my producers. I just kind of glanced up at the game, like Nolan Ryan was pitching for a little while, and then I look up and I saw Wilson. It was Wilson. Our teammate was taking at bat in the 1985 All-Star game. So he was that good.
Wow.
He was in the top 10. He made All-Star teams and stuff.
Do you think about your characters?
But I kind of missed his career.
Yeah.
Was what I was saying. I mean, I was aware of him. I remember I had a job. I was working at I was the night bellman at the Doubletree Hotel here in 87, 88. And there was a Sports Illustrated later. I'm working the graveyard shift, 11 to 7 in the morning. And I remember there was a Sports Illustrated, like, what players make? And I was just glancing through, like, oh, these guys get $1 million. And I got to Wilson was making like, and this is 87, he was making like 750,000, 660. Yeah, he was making, I go, shit, I'm making $5 an hour. And Wilson's making $660,000. I was like, wow, I think maybe, yeah.
But that's, that's what's fun about this movie too. As a sports fan, it's like sometimes all the money and all the you mentioned the guys thinking of themselves as their own brand. Sometimes that can kind of pollute the purity of the game. As a fan, you want to kind of immerse yourself in just the culture of the game. So, when did you realize that as a baseball player that baseball was a business?
Well, when you don't get drafted, or we had guys on the team, we were talking that this guy's going to get drafted, he's going to play, and when they don't,
Where scouts start showing up and guys get a little tense and tight and stuff.
Right, and you're going, well, is he going to sign? How much is he going to get paid? And when those guys don't get drafted, then you're going, well, I'm not going to get drafted, so I've got to go do something else. And this guy did get drafted, but they offered him $500 and a free bus ticket to
We had a joke. I'll
so-
sign for a cup of coffee and a road map.
Right.
That was what we
That's
would
right.
all sign for, just to have the
right.
chance.
There's a great line in the movie. I think it's Wyatt's character who says to the lead, Jake, he says, embrace your inner strange, be weird. Richard, would that be a kind of advice to young filmmakers?
Well, there is something about just being yourself, which is, again, it's kind of hard to do in sports, but you kind of have to be confident in yourself and on a team. He's giving him advice, just kind of, I think, more life advice. Just be who you are. Because that's but he's older. We find out later, not to give anything away, that this player who's the sage guy who has the Betamax player in all the Twilight Zones, we find out he's actually 30. He's under an assumed identity, and he's been playing ball, so he's kind of older, and his taste in music, he's listening to old Pink Floyd. It all makes sense, and he's not listening to the new Pink Floyd, he's listening to old. So it was a fun character, but that's actually, that character is based on a guy, we came to the conclusion, or the theory. This one guy drifted into he was a transfer in, he was a senior, he was from Washington State, he played at Gonzaga. But he played backgammon and drank coffee and read the Wall Street Journal.
And all of his high school teammates were like 7 years older than us.
Or they seemed like he had friends already in the major leagues.
Right,
and I was like, wait, that guy, you played, some of the math didn't really work out. So we started thinking like, oh, Knutson just came in for that.
And as quickly as he came in, he just slipped out silently. And
we never heard from him again.
again.
And he had a great year. He was a good pitcher. He was like 8-2. He was one of our best pitchers. But a cool guy, but kind of he wasn't a stoner the way Wyatt Russell does. So he wasn't, but he kind of kept himself, but he was really smart, really a good guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Generous, with his thoughts. But I just thought he was he was kind of a great guy, but mysterious.
But when you say, just be yourself, and it's a lot easier said than done for a lot of people. And I feel like oftentimes your films are these coming of age stories where people do fall into their skin and do end up in the places where they are supposed to be. So obviously, that said, when you are a young filmmaker, and I know there's a lot of aspiring writers and directors out here and stuff, how do you find that voice as an artist?
It's the maturation process. I found it, the confidence, you can't really fake. I had a coach who said you can't fake confidence. It sounds funny, but it's true. You have to earn it. You have to work hard. You have to earn that confidence. It's the same in the arts. And it was interesting pursuing. I spent my whole 20s, just in film world. All I did was watch films, shoot film, edit film, write film. It was just my whole life. I brought to it the kind of what you would have to do to play pro ball. That kind of dedication. So I remember bringing that. But I think the hardest leap was to just learn to find your own voice. I think a lot of writers and artists, it takes a while. You're in the craft of it. You may be obsessed with the craft. You're obsessed with the details. When you think of a career, making a living, you get obsessed with all the things outside of yourself. The sports equivalent, are the scouts here? How do I look? It's a little bit of that in the arts. It's like, who's going to help me get to the next level? But then you really realize it's just you. That's why I prefer the arts, obviously, a lot more than sports, because it's not competitive in that way. It's just you trying to maximize your own gifts, whatever they are, and work within that. So I think once I could really trust my instincts, and that's working with other people too, just to kind of confidently, deal with all the issues. A lot of it's kind of the mentality you have to bring to it. So I think it's the same in sports. Like looking back, I didn't have the mentality of a major league, of a pro ball player, but I do have the mentality of a film director. I had to discover that, but that's where I'm meant to be, so you have to discover that, but you have to really work hard on yourself. You have to not think it's outside of you. Think it's just kind of under your control. And that can be in anything too. You just have to kind of actualize, I guess, that part of yourself.
I'm going to line up if anybody has questions for these guys here. We got about 20 minutes left, so there's a microphone in the middle. We'll start a line, but Tyler, go ahead.
There was a great thing in the documentary you did with Coach Garrido that I remember him saying, it's about learning to trust your own decisions. It's about learning to really go with your gut and what you believe, and being willing to go through that. And I think on the set, I'm speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for a lot of the guys. That was one of the best parts about shooting this film, was having a director who trusted all of us so much, and I think trusted us with his decision to cast us and have us there. It gave us all the confidence to go into it and be like, yes, I can try this, and I can fail, and it can be wrong, and that's not, there's not this thing of right and wrong. It's just trying different things, and you only succeed by learning through failure. So I think that was that was the mentality we finally all got to go into, and that's such a better place to be creatively than, am I doing this right? Is this the right? That's
all our
the
failure
thing.
was going to be in rehearsal, and it's not even failure. It's just fun.
No, it's just discovery. It's discovery. It was fun. You would see something, you're like, yeah, that didn't work very well. We're not going to try that again. So
but it wasn't like, that other thing you did was better.
Yeah,
let's just have fun. You just keep moving forward. And, that rehearsal process. But I think it helps when the coach, we all played for different kind of coaches, and the coach who was nervous, who wanted to win too bad, But then the relaxed coach, and this is what I kind of took away from that as a player. I like the coach who just believed in you, versus the guy who's really scrutinizing you, going, I'm not sure about you. You just wanted someone, I'm on the team. You either recruited me or you're stuck with me. So just believe in me and leave me, don't fuck with me, and, in my head. So I kind of treated actors like that. Like, you're here. I'm very confident in our team. We just have to win as a team. But it's very different if, the coach calls you over, you're up to bat, and it's like, hey, okay, look for, if they're nervous. But I remember a coach, I had a high school coach who was pretty cool, and I remember he's just like, hey man, hit it out of here and let's go home, man. Game's over. I'm gonna go to the back. Okay, and I hit a home run and the game was over. I was like, that was the way you should do that. He tried that again, like the next game, it didn't work, but it worked that time.
Yeah, you have a question, jump on in.
Yeah. Oh, hi. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Sorry,
how
this
you
is
doing?
not short
We're having
people friendly at all. It's so great to be here with you guys. I guess my question is for Richard and Tyler. I'm an actress here, so I guess, Richard, my question for you is what do you, and you touched up that a little bit now, is what do you appreciate that actors bring after you've cast them and you're there with them? And also, I guess, Tyler, what did you really appreciate from Richard when you were on set?
Can I just start by saying, I mean, I love actors. You know, they are, I think again, we're talking about sports, the way a coach should love their ball players just because you know enough about it, like I know enough about acting, the way a coach would know enough about the sport to appreciate how tough it is and how good they are. You know, if you played, like all coaches played, but they're not as good as who's out there now. So they know just enough about it to, you know, appreciate that. And I feel that as actors, you know, I know just enough about acting. I studied just as a future storyteller, filmmaker, to know how hard it is and to appreciate the absolute, what's required to be an actor at that level, how good you have to be, but what you've had to go through to get there. So I think they sense I do truly enjoy, you know, working with them, and because a lot of it's just, you're just there to help them be as good as they can be, like a coach. They're not saying, I'm better than you, they're saying, hey, you got a little hitch, you know, got a little hitch in your swing, it's just an observation, but you be who you know, you're the hitter. So the film is kind of, it's the actor's movie, and I tried to give them that. I was like, this film isn't, the camera's not on me, it's on you. So you are the movie, and we're gonna do everything we can to maximize that, to have this story work through you. So I want to encourage them. I think a lot of the humor, I mean, this is a big comedy, and a lot of the humor comes out of a group mentality. Someone does something fun, and I'm gauging it. You know, you write alone, and I think this is funny, but I'm not sure. And when we sit in a room, all 12 or 13 of us, and someone reads something that I wrote, and I see no one really responds, I'm like, you know, maybe that's not that funny. We do something better. Or someone says something, and I see 12 guys crack up laughing. I'm like, ding. Maybe that'll work in the movie. You know, that's funny what you just said. You know, but it's that kind of group, you know, like the funniest guys I was ever around, the wittiest, funniest guys was our college teammates. We had all that time together. I still think some of the funniest people, and they're not professional comedians, they're not writers, they were just guys hanging out who were just saw the world in a really funny way. So I was trying to capture that. So what better way than to get everybody together? But in this case, they're professional, you know, actors. But it was that mentality. But I don't know. I just love performers, you know. But I mean, athletes are performers too. Everyone's kind of a performer. But the bravery it takes to risk. And the movie talks about this, risking failure, putting yourself out there. So every athlete, they're driven to do as well as they can. But they're also risking that failure, that public failure, that embarrassment. You know, you could be a YouTube sensation pretty quickly. You do something wrong, you know. So
it's amazing about baseball too. If you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's it's how you see failure. But like the career in the arts, you know, an actor, you go on an audition, you don't get the part, but you did well and you learned something, you met someone. You have to think of it as positive. Like baseball player, you know, you went 0 for 3, maybe you walked once, but you know, you hit the ball hard 3 times. You go, you know, I know the stats don't show it, but I felt, you know, I hit the ball. You know, you got to look where you can improve, and you just have to adjust your mentality to even other people's terms of success.
That's a great point.
You know?
Yeah. Another question.
Sure. Hi. I'm also a filmmaker and former baseball player, and I'm a diehard Mets fan. So I see in a lot of your films, Richard, like even like Dazed and Confused and Bad News Bears, and you put a lot of yourself in it with playing baseball, and like then you have like other films like the Newton Boys, or like different things that I'm not sure if you experienced personally. How do you find that balance between putting yourself and your own personal experiences into your storytelling and your narrative versus adapting from what else is already out there?
Well, I mean, what I do, it's really just storytelling. So it's whatever story you've chosen, you're obsessed with enough to want to do what you have to do to make a movie. You know, so each one's different. But even when it's something like you're adapting a real life story or a novel or something, you're putting yourself in that equally. So I can't differentiate. Like this is, I could say, is kind of spot on autobiographical in a way. But I give up that to who I'm working with too, to add to that. Another story that's come to me from somewhere else, you know, like say the Newton Boys or something, that to me feels autobiographical. Like if I lived at that time, this was kind of my attitude towards stuff. You know, you put yourself into it to that degree, you personalize it. Because you think, you know, of all the stories in the world, why are you wanting to make a movie out of this? It must speak to you on some level. It must mean something. So, you just, you know, you're personalizing it. It's got to mean something to you, you know.
Sure. Sorry, I would be remiss if I didn't say it. You're my favorite filmmaker.
Oh.
You're talking about confidence and putting yourself out there, and I was just wondering, could I give you a USB flash drive of
What's that? What did I miss? I give you a USB flash drive.
Can I give you a flash drive?
Okay. You can, but I didn't get anywhere except to the film festival, they accepted it, and you know.
I understand.
No one's gonna help. I mean, you know, it'd be great, but you know,
Good pull.
I can only. It's so easy now. It used to be, you know, I'll
Right?
give you
Look at that.
a-
Tech.
Yeah.
We were talking about technology. Look at
We
that.
couldn't do that in 1980. That's the
You
one.
sure couldn't.
Yes, go
Hi.
right ahead.
I'm Nicole. I was also a former athlete, and my pregame ritual for a while was watching Miracle before every playoff game.
Was what?
Watching the movie Miracle before, so sort of a weird intersectionality there. I just was wondering, like, approaching this as a sports film, and you were talking about sort of wanting to make sure that you cast people that had baseball experience. Sort of what was the balance between, like, really, like, using your baseball experience and wanting to, like, showcase the sport between just making it sort of like a fun, personal, humorous film?
Yeah. On this, I was just emphasizing the camaraderie and the competitiveness, the nature of the guys. I really didn't care about showcasing the sport at all. That was not a goal. When we did, the little bit that was required in the movie, I want it to be very authentic. I want you've gotten to know these guys, and once they finally hit the field, he's like, oh, they really are good. I mean, they're real players. That's all I wanted to get to that. But other than that, I think most sports movies, you just don't see it enough. They're really it's about the game itself, and you can't really shoot it or be more inherently dramatic than the game that's on TV right now, you know, or whatever. They're naturally dramatic. Sports has a natural three-act structure, a lot of drama in it. It's easy to tell a sports movie because, we have a goal, we have the conflict, and we have the resolution. They win, you know. So it makes for good arcs, but it's been done so much that I was really trying to, on this movie, when people say, oh, it's a college baseball movie, I go, you know, it's a comedy, it's it's no college and very little baseball. Yes.
Yes, next, we got about 10 minutes left, guys. Yeah, next question.
Hi, my name's David Allen. I'm an actor, writer, director as well. Fellow Texan, moved to LA chasing the dream, and I ended up in Wellington, New Zealand. And right now, we're in the middle of starting a screen co-op to kind of chase the hardest challenges of being a creative, which is focus on the creative, right? Let the business go to somebody else. So the problem that we have right now going on is we get all the big blockbusters coming, their Avatars, the King Kongs, all that stuff's going on. So what happens is all the talent goes to that, and then we're left with the independent sector struggling to find the right crew and all the talent and the funding. In your career, at this point right now, being in Austin and staying in Austin, what are the biggest challenges you've found as staying in the independent and building up in each part of the process, like whether it's finding the funding and why filmmaking takes so long to get a project done?
Yeah, it's It's always difficult. It was difficult when I was starting way back when. It's as difficult or more now. It's always the challenge. Film is different, you know. No one's gonna, the economics of doing a painting or writing music or writing a novel are fairly minimal. It's just your own time. But film, yeah, you gotta get this apparatus going, you know, if you're gonna pay people and be professional, you know, to get that level. So you have to be a little bit of a hustler, entrepreneur, businessman. You have to kind of have that hat somewhere in your
that's already on all
in
the
your
time,
personality. But yeah, it's a hustle. All I can say is, you know, I started a film society here in Austin in 1985. You know, we're in our 30th anniversary, and that community that was around me, that was fun. We just loved movies, and we were showing movies, and you know, making movies, and it just kind of felt very organic, and I've been lucky, but I didn't think it was outside myself. You know, early on, you're always behind. You think, you know, that's why this movie's called Everybody Wants Something, because when you're young, you think you deserve everything you want, you know, and you're entitled to it. But I found out in the arts, it's like, well, it's got its own time, you know, things weren't happening for me quick enough. I was ready to make films much earlier than I was kind of allowed to. And I look back now and go, oh, I wasn't really ready.
No, exactly.
I wasn't ready. I'm glad they didn't hand me a feature film budget when I was 25. That film wouldn't have been very good. I was really ready a little later. It took me a while. So
how hands-on are you in that process of the business side, or do you hand that off to others to take care of, you know, once you get to that level?
You have to be on it, but yeah, once you get a little more established or you get lucky and, you know, yeah, you can, there's more help there. But getting started it's tough, and each film is its own independent, crazy venture that has its own personality, you know, its own origins and its own difficulties. It's not for the squeamish, you know. People who want a normal life, you know,
no,
it's not going to happen.
And
but
so,
you have to want
when
the
you started
adventure
building,
of it.
Yeah, when you started building the community, how much of the collaboration process in that community thrived from that?
Yeah, I think it's essential. It's essential. I mean, it's wonderful for everybody who can maybe be getting something out of it as a member. Because if they don't, they're not part of the community. But those who are, you know, it's kind of like being on the team. You just want to be a part of the community, and you hope everyone there benefits in the way they want. You know, so I think in a town like this where we are, I think it's self-perpetuating. It's just big enough that I think there's a lot going on that's wonderful, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take time for a couple more here. We got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for this. This has been like a really awesome panel to sit in on. I'm Tom. I'm a filmmaker. I played a lot of sports in high school and then a bit in college. So I guess one of the things that I just wanted to question Richard and Tyler about is sort of with characters. I remember, you know, being in the locker room and everybody seemed to be bigger than life. You know, you think of these guys as like these characters that if you tell anybody else about, they're like, that can't be true. They're ridiculous. So on this film, did you ever feel the need to like reel back and be like, I can't give this guy all the personality and everything that he had, or did you feel like you're just gonna let that breathe?
I think we let it breathe. I think if you see the movie, we kind of let it breathe, and everybody. And that was the great thing, you know, going through the script. I remember when I came in to read with Rick, it was, you know, I think we spent more time talking about the other characters in the script than we did like actually playing out the scenes, because you know, we knew the left-handed pitcher who was always just a little bit weird, and I had a roommate who was like that, and so you kind of just always remember these guys, and they are. I mean, I remember, to your point, you don't believe half the stories. We had a guy who would, you know, come out of the shower in the towel and literally do the party boy from MTV thing around the locker room, bumping everyone into their lockers. And like, you can't even grasp like the image of what it would have been like to do this. He bumped one guy around the entire locker room one time while the guy's trying to put his underwear on, and he's just hopping on one foot and just bumping him all the way. It was the most hilarious thing. And so it is. It's a much larger than life kind of place to be. And I think we did a pretty good job of you know, allowing those guys to be pretty true to that in the film.
Yeah, we have time for a couple more.
Hey, Megan Volbert, columnist for Pop Matters. I think what you've all said is really valuable. as a lesson to the music industry because bands are notoriously shitty about teamwork, and that's why so many of them don't last.
I don't see how bands stay together.
Yeah, and so my question to you, Rick, is tell us some of your favorite bands, and then secondarily, in a film context, are there bands or songs that for you are sort of the holy grail of soundtracks that you would like to get that you haven't gotten?
So what was the second question? Like current bands or?
Your favorite bands, and then certain songs that you would love to maybe put in a movie one day.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, you love so much. The thing about doing this movie, I just got to go to 1980, so all the songs from 79, 80, I just rediscovered, pulled out hundreds of them, and I was listening to them as I was writing, and they really informed, and a lot of them are in the movie. We have a double vinyl album coming out. So that's fun. But what was it? Like I see certain bands. You know, I used 2 Arcade Fire songs in boyhood, and I really got intrigued with them when I saw this stage full of people. You know, like 12, 13 people. There's seemingly a leader, but I just like their cooperative nature and their music. I just thought that was kind of beautiful. So the inner dynamics of that group intrigued me quite a bit. But I just pulled one out. I could talk forever about music. But this is sports and film, so I don't know.
We've got time for one more here.
One more. So I'm fascinated by your comment that you're not a nostalgic person, because I think your films, for a lot of us that are maybe close to your age, hit such a point of nostalgia and really take us back. So I'm curious, when you work with your production designer and your art director, where do they fit into your process? Do they ever bring you something that you see it and it actually impacts the storyline? You see it like, oh, I remember that, and it kind of folds back into the writing. And thanks a lot for a great panel, all of the panelists.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the magic of making movies, is especially when you're doing a period film like this. You know, you're trying to recreate it exactly. I didn't want to exaggerate. I didn't want to make fun of any of it. I just wanted to show it like it felt like at the time. So that's the goal. And my production designer was actually younger. Some of the other people I'm working with, producers, are kind of my age-ish and remembered the time. My production designer was probably like not even 10 years old then. He was, you know, so he would bring me stuff and I'm like, oh, off a few years, or, you know, disco. He wanted a lit disco dance floor. I was like, no, that was only in Saturday Night Fever. None of us had a lit dance floor. You know, I'm like, you know, so you're kind of, but I like it because he would just kept coming with creative stuff. And then you go, oh, that's perfect. Oh, that's great. So you're dialing them in on the specifics of that year and time. But it's a fun collaboration. And, you know, production design, art director, that's just, you know, the beauty, the fun. You're trying to get it all right, get the right baseball glove, the right, you know. But it's a lot of fun to try to get that. But you have to be really rigorous with them. You can't, if you slack off and kind of say, oh, it doesn't matter, no one's going to notice that was actually from 1982. No, you have to try to be, because you're still going to get a few things wrong. You just can't help it. But you have to strive for absolute perfection, you know.
We've been talking a lot about teammates because that's a big theme of the movie. So I want to give a quick shout out to my high school catcher, John Budish is over there. Teammates. Shout out to Budish. The movie everybody wants. Some hits theaters April 1st.
Yeah.
Give it up for these guys.
Thanks,
and thank
Rick.
you all for coming here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.